Rent versus buy in New York City, the hard financial truth. I'm a real estate agent. I make money when people buy and sell property. And sometimes I tell people not to buy. Not because I don't want the business, because the math doesn't work for them. And if I let someone walk into a transaction they're not ready for, I'm not doing my job. I'm just cashing a check. So let's have the honest conversation that most agents in this city won't have with you. There's a belief that renting is throwing your money away, that every month to pay a landlord, you're losing. Here's the thing. In most cities, that logic holds up reasonably well. In Manhattan, it's more complicated because the cost of buying and the cost of eventually selling is high enough that doing it on the wrong timeline can cost you more than renting ever would. I've been doing this for 18 years. I've had to sit across from buyers with real money, real income, and real motivation and say, not yet. Your timeline doesn't match the math. That conversation protects them, and it's the one nobody else is willing to have. So let's piece together this puzzle. The first thing you need to understand about buying in Manhattan is what it actually costs. We're not talking about the purchase price. We're talking about the money you hand over at the closing table on top of the purchase price. If you're buying a condo with a mortgage, your closing costs can roughly be 4 to 6% of the purchase price. On a $1.7 million apartment, and right now, the median condo is somewhere between 1.6 and 1.8. That's potentially a significant amount of cash at closing on top of your down payment. Speaking of which, plan for 20 to 25% down in this market. Some buildings, particularly the more selective co-ops on 5th and Park Avenue, want more. But 20 to 25% is your baseline. So those closing costs, including the mortgage recording tax, nearly 2% of your loan amount just to record the mortgage with the state. Title insurance, attorney's fees. And if your purchase price is over $1 million, which in Manhattan means almost everything, it includes the mansion tax. That is a tax paid by the buyer, and it increases progressively as the price goes up, starting at 1% at $1 million and climbing from there. All of it due at the closing table, none of it financeable. And that's just to get in. Now let's talk about getting out, because this is a number that almost nobody models correctly when they're deciding whether to buy. When you sell a Manhattan apartment, plan for roughly 8 to 10% of your gross sales price going to exit cost. That is the baseline. Broker commissions are the largest piece. Then the city and state transfer taxes. Those run nearly 2% of your sale price for most transactions. If you own a co-op, the building may have a flip tax, a private exit fee that goes into the building's reserve fund. The structure and amount varies by building. Every building is different, and it's something we look at before you buy. So when you're modeling whether buying makes sense, you have to factor in both what it costs to get in and what it costs to get out. That's the real break-even calculation. The break-even horizon in Manhattan, the point at which buying outperforms renting, is generally modeled between 5 and 7 years. In the early years of your mortgage, the majority of your monthly payment goes to interest, not principal. You're not building equity quickly. Meanwhile, the market needs to appreciate enough to cover your entry costs, your carrying costs, and eventually your exit costs before you actually come out ahead. Hold it long enough and ownership wins significantly. The leverage of owning a real asset that appreciates, combined with fixed mortgage payment while rents around you keep rising, is a powerful wealth building position over time. But the key word is time. If your horizon is less than 5 years, the math is probably not in your favor. Let's peel away the onion for a second on something that doesn't get talked about enough. One of the advantages of owning a co-op specifically, and I always mention this to buyers, that a portion of your monthly maintenance fee is tax deductible. The co-op pays property taxes and mortgage interest on the underlying building mortgage, and shareholders can write off their proportional share. Your mortgage interest is also a deduction. Now, I'm not an accountant, so I always tell people to verify this with their tax advisor, but it's a real financial benefit that factors into the true cost of ownership. Now, here's the honest counter argument to renting. Renting is not free. Manhattan rents are not going down. Every year you rent, you're deploying significant capital in pure unrecoverable costs, while the people who bought years ago are watching their equity grow. The difference is that renting gives you liquidity and flexibility. You can leave. An owner, especially in a co-op, cannot exit quickly or inexpensively. So the real question is not renting versus buying as a philosophical debate. It's what is your actual time horizon and what is your financial position right now? Here's what I tell every buyer who comes to me before the math is ready. If you're going to be in New York City for less than 5 years, or if there's any real chance your situation changes before then, keep your capital liquid. Rent a good apartment, let the market work for you while you get ready. But if your timeline is 5 years or more, and you have the liquidity to cover the down payment, the closing costs, and still have reserves left over, buying in Manhattan is one of the most powerful wealth-building moves you can make. You're buying a leveraged, appreciating asset in one of the most supply-constrained markets in the world. The leverage is the entire argument for buying, but only if you can hold it long enough for it to work. And one more thing, because I want to be transparent, how I approach this on the buy side. Before I help a client make an offer, I do my homework. I look at whether there are any pending assessments. I ask about recent maintenance increases. I find out what the seller's offering towards a buyer broker fee, because that's part of the negotiation too. None of this is standard protocol. It's just how I work, because there are no surprises at the closing table. Means doing the work before the offer goes in, not after. If you want to run your specific numbers, your timeline, your budget, your situation, comment the word math down below, and I'll send you the buy versus rent framework I walk every client through before we look at a single apartment. No pressure, just the honest calculation.